This is Duke University.
One course every semester for every student is picked randomly out of the equivalent of a digital hat. Every course at the university on every level goes into that hat, and a student picks their class. It can't be in their major or minor, but it can be anything else. It could be a seminar on Zora Neale Hurston, or it could be a course on abstract algebra. The point is, one course in the midst of everything traditional and normal and da-da-da-da that you're doing, one course makes you realize that you're in a very deep pool and your feet aren't even close to being on the bottom. The net result would be a really interesting experiment, and it would teach those students the confidence for the rest of their lives to know whenever they were in a situation where they weren't touching bottom, that they could depend on others and find the right people to depend on to stay afloat. I was teaching an undergraduate class called This Is Your Brain on the Internet, which was half cognitive neuroscience and half an analysis of what the digital age means. I was teaching a graduate class called Early American Novels and Other Fiction. So my two fields, the 18th century and the 20th century, undergraduate and graduate. I did the same experiment for both of them. To both groups of students, I came in and said, if you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in your education, you have to share it. You can't just learn it, you have to share it. This is a moment of great sharing. So everybody in both classes has to make some kind of contribution to public knowledge. So sometimes they went onto blogs and contributed to conversations that were happening on the internet. Sometimes they changed or actually wrote Wikipedia entries or found facts and fact errors and corrected them in Wikipedia. They all in some way made some contribution that was out there. The most exciting thing was when somebody would respond to them or pick up their comment, somebody they had never met in their lives, and would respond to it and react to it, and they realized that their thinking, their knowledge, really could have an impact in the world. I would say it was an unqualified success story. The novel was a form that was the video game of the 18th century. Everyone hated it. All the authorities hated it. Parents hated it. Presidents hated it. People criticized it. And it was a form only made possible by this new affordance, as we say in contemporary digital media, which was called mass printing. Suddenly we have public libraries. We have cheap books and paper. And it scared the authority figures. What would it mean if people weren't just reading the Bible and the New England Primer and the hymn books, but reading these novels that featured working class heroes and heroines very much like the readers themselves? It was terrifying. That was the new media of the 18th century. It's not that much of a leap to come to the 20th century with the computer, with kids being online, with new kinds of access, and no one quite knowing what's happening. I think technology today in the classroom isn't just about what we used to call IT, instructional technology. It's trying to figure out new ways that people are thinking collaboratively and collectively, online together, crowdsourcing, non-hierarchical ways of contributing to knowledge like Wikipedia and other sources, and using that for a new and expanded form of education. A form of education where the teacher might not, like Ichabod Crane, in the 18th century, be standing at the front of the classroom, but might actually be working around with students, online, offline, face-to-face, virtually, but in new ways where people are doing projects together, contributing different kinds of skills to massive projects that actually interrogate some of the biggest ideas of our moment. I think, and this was true in the 18th century and it's true now, that whenever you're in an era of hugely expanded technology and hugely expanded communications where people are interacting with one another in a different way, it doesn't just change communication, it changes how we think about communication. That's what we do as educators. We communicate to our students. We find the best available ways to communicate ideas to our students and to get them interested in the world of ideas. We haven't absorbed what it means that people love to learn and love to teach. Those 22 million, or how many ever it is today, people on Wikipedia are teachers. They love to communicate what they know, and people feel they have something not only worth knowing themselves, but worth communicating. That's a different view of human nature. I think we have to go through a huge, major process of unlearning before we can relearn. If we don't, we're going to be irrelevant. And again, I love my profession. I love my students. I love teaching at Duke, and I don't want us to be trivial. I don't want us to be peripheral. So I'm willing to go through the process of unlearning, but it's never painless. It's never a painless process, and you have to be in it for the long haul. You have to be in it because you know the next thing, relearning, is going to be incredibly exciting.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.